While Joe Hockey's been busy hosing down his housing fire, the Treasurer has also found himself at odds with the Reserve Bank. Governor Glenn Stevens weighed into the affordability debate today, calling Sydney prices crazy. And while Mr Hockey hailed last week's economic growth figures as a triumph, Mr Stevens' assessment isn't so upbeat, and he appears to have left the door open for another rate cut. Here's finance correspondent Philip Lasker.
Treasurer Joe Hockey did not hold back when describing the recent March quarter GDP numbers, which showed the Australian economy grew at a robust 0.9%.
We've had a terrific set of numbers that came out today.
But the Reserve Bank Governor today looked at the past year and was nowhere near as effusive.
So if I think about how that compares with what we were saying 2 years ago, it's weaker.
While exports were good and housing construction strong, the Governor could not ignore weak demand in the economy, households having to dip into their savings, and the very weak business investment outside the mining sector, which looks like getting worse.
Putting all that together, as things stand, the economy's growing, but it could do with a bit more demand than we presently forecast over the next couple of years.
There was a clear note of frustration from the Governor's speech today that the pace of momentum in the economy, demand was noted as could do with a bit more of a boost over the next year or two.
And with that, the Governor signalled he was happy to do his bit by continuing to cut interest rates.
We remain open to the possibility of further easing if, on balance, that would be beneficial for sustainable growth. And let me emphasise sustainable.
But Glenn Stevens once again warned that his powers were limited because many households were in no position to respond to lower rates by taking on more debt.
And the reason for that is they've already done it. They did it a decade or more ago, and that process is finished. Their debt burden, certainly being very well serviced, very low arrears and so on, all manageable. But the question is, can it sustainably rise materially from here?
Taking on more debt isn't the only thing households are reluctant to do. The latest consumer sentiment survey showed the post-budget confidence boost has evaporated, so households may not be spending either.
It was a surprisingly weak result. The detail shows renewed concerns about the economy and the economic outlook really at the centre of this weakness, and we're back to this subdued, cautiously pessimistic mode that's dominated over the last couple of years.
Also unsustainable was the rise in house prices in some capital cities, especially Sydney. Here again, the Governor was out of step with the Treasurer Joe Hockey, who remains reluctant to describe Sydney's property market as a bubble or unaffordable.
Yes, I'm very concerned about Sydney. I think some of what's happening is crazy, but we've got a national focus to manage as well, and that just increases the complexity.
Look, I don't think it's quite a bubble yet, but it certainly has the potential. So I think it has to be watched closely. And again, coming back to that affordability is important, particularly for a country like Australia.
And important for the government's popularity.